Hello everyone, it's Joe here from OmniPoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon. It's time for another installment of the news, kicking off where we left off. That was March 4th, and we're going all the way up to March 21st. Lots to discuss. Detective Pikachu figure collection's been announced. Most of the news this month is centered around the SM10A GG End cards. GG End standing ready for both GG, the sort of common slang, but also Giratina Garchomp, the poster boy GX of the set. The Mewtwo GX case file has finally been announced. The cards have finally been revealed for the family box in full. Unbroken Bronze product images, they're all out now. The ones that we were waiting for were the booster pack promo cards, the blisters. Then we have the Detective Pikachu in-store promos being announced. Ultra Pro have got some new accessories to do with the movie as well. There's the Remix Bout mini set information finally coming from Japan, their next little set in store. And also there's the Blastoise GX Premium Collection box that we have some information on as well. So let's get straight into it. Starting off with this Detective Pikachu figure collection. We don't actually know if it's going to be a Detective Pikachu himself, which is going to be sort of the poster boy, the figurine himself and the promo. But it's very likely that's going to be the case, seeing as though it's only just one figure collection. I would imagine it's going to be the Pikachu himself. It's going to retail for 20 bucks, containing, you know, the usual 4 Detective Pikachu boosters, 2 regular boosters, a coin, a figurine, and a code card, releasing in June 28th for NA and EU. So, seems pretty reasonable. This figurine is just the amiibo one, so don't take it as read that that's it. I just wanted to have something on this page, but I imagine we'll get more information from this as we get it. So, throughout the month, as I mentioned, SM10A GG End is really the main news article, and we're going to be looking at a lot of the cards today. So the set is going to release in Japan on April 5th, featuring 54 cards, so it is pretty small. We know 2 things about the set. 1, it's going to be themed based around dragons, and 2, they're going to be enhancing tag team Pokemon with some of these cards, so we'll see some later down the line that are specifically mentioning tag teams in their abilities and their texts. So they're definitely trying to push tag teams in this set, which is pretty interesting. And yeah, we're also getting some sleeves at the same time being released. So you can see bottom left there, just a couple of examples. But let's get into some of these cards. Big Oven is a new stadium card that says, once during each player's turn, that player may discard a card from their hand. If they do, that player searches their deck for 2 fire energy, reveals them and puts them into their hand. Then that player shuffles their deck. Has amazing synergy with the Salazzle card and the Welder cards coming out in the Unbroken Bond set, so I imagine this stadium is going to be a great addition to fire decks. Grimsley is a supporter card, which says, move up to 3 damage counters from one of your opponent's Pokemon to another of one of your opponent's Pokemon. This sounds like a terrible supporter to me. You have that small bit of control, but it really is a small amount of damage that you're allowed to move around. And we already have Spell Tag for Psychic decks if you want to have more control. This is obviously more fluid, but I think overall this isn't too strong. Then we move on to the Alolan Marowak. It has a free attack cost, seeing as though it is an Alolan Pokemon, called Soulbreaker. It says discard the top card of your opponent's deck. If the discarded card was a Pokemon, this attack does damage equal to the HP of that Pokemon. So the idea is you use Hiker and guarantee some Pokemon on the top of your opponent's deck. Not only are you getting rid of their own attacking resources, but you're also doing damage to them for free. But I do think it's more of a meme for sure. The second attack for a Psychic Colorless is just Bone Knock for 60, and that's not impressive at all. The bottom card here is a Zygarde. It has the ability Sell Company. As long as this Pokemon is on your bench, your Zygarde's attacks, including Pokemon GX, do 20 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. That's really strong. This is a stackable version, essentially, of a Diancie Prism Star, and that deck can also use Diancie Prism Star, so you can actually fill your bench with lots of these damage buffing cards, and we know how powerful Zygarde GX can be, top 8 Worlds alongside Lycanroc, and his typing is still relevant, so giving him extra damage modifiers could mean that even doing a DCE Cell Connectors, that's going to be good numbers, and you could play an Acerola based deck, because we know he does have a lot of base hit points, so that's something to bear in mind. He also has the attack Boost Fang. It does 20, and attach a fighting energy from your discard to one of your benched Pokemon. That's also very reasonable. Bear in mind that this is a Zygarde himself. So as you have other ones on the bench, it means your own Boost Fang is boosted damage-wise. So even this can be pretty threatening. These attacks have previously been reasonable throughout the TCG. Just think about non-GXE Veltor and how strong that was. Think about Power Heater as well. It was getting extra energy for sure, but similar to this, it can scale in damage in the early game as well, so it can end up being an attacking presence that knocks out low hit point basics that are trying to evolve. So this seems to be a very powerful card. I like its typing, I like its ability, and we already have a reasonable Zygarde GX where its damage being buffed can only help out the archetype. So seems like a pretty strong card that people might try and build around. From there, we have more item cards. There's a tool, Black Belt. If you have more prize cards remaining than your opponent, the attacks of the Pokemon this card is attached to cost fighting less. So this is essentially a counter gain, but it's, instead of colorless energy, it's fighting energy. And that could really help some specific fighting decks, I imagine. So nothing really comes to mind, but I haven't seen many fighting archetypes right now be defensive. I normally see them being more aggressive, so they're rarely behind on prize cards. But this does give you a new dimension, and potentially it means that you have, again, like a searchable fighting energy for Sledgehammer turns via something like a Jirachi, where you don't need to play Viridian Forest. You could play Volkner now and just Volkner for a black belt instead, for example. So this could help Boswell in a tech variety, because you have an item searchable energy card as well, if you're going for like a Sledgehammer turn, for example. So that could be pretty interesting, so something to bear in mind. Tag Switch is a very powerful item card, which I was amazed to see. You move 2 energy from one of your tag team Pokemon to another of your Pokemon. Now, some early turbo Pikarom builds were playing 4 E-Switch and 2 Multi-Switch, just so they can throw energy all over the place. You can full blitz to the back and then do a bunch of energy switches to the front if it doesn't get knocked out, or vice versa. And this card seems absolutely a godsend for Pikarom, because you can throw energies all around your board and then tag switch them off like your one Pikarom onto the other one, for example. So that's pretty nuts. Obviously, it's taking them only from a tag team, so it can maybe help you Acerola up a tag team Pokemon whilst retaining energy as well. Obviously, it's fairly specific, but I can imagine there's going to be some quad-based tag team decks as well popping up. Maybe Charizard Reshiram if you are like setting up for an outrage or something, and you know one of them gets hit too much, you could like retreat and tag switch. I think this is a very versatile card for tag teams, and I think this is probably the most impressive trainer card that we've seen that improves tag teams. I'm not fully sold on the other like tag team enhancers that they've mentioned so far, but this individual item card sounds strong. It sounds really, really good because it states, you know, from your tag team, but it can go anywhere else, so it has that flexibility at least. Definitely a huge power spike on a regular energy switch. Obviously a bit more specific, but there has to be some balance there in all. In your bottom left, we see the Drifblim. Both the Drifblim and the Kangaskhan, you'll notice here, I'll just bring my mouse over, they have some blurred images. This is because they're probably just blurring a Pokemon in the background that's not been released yet. You'll notice in the background of this Lucario, there's the Garchomp and Tina, also the Garchomp and Tina in the background of this Meloetta. So I imagine it's maybe that they're hiding another tag team or another relevant Pokemon in the set. But for now, we know its ability is Tag Carry. Once during your turn, you may switch your active tag team with one of your benched Pokemon. So essentially giving yourself free retreat, but it doesn't count as your retreat for turn either. It's a switch effect, so it's not retreating, and that could be really helpful. Again, if you're going for Jirachi-based plays with a Pikarom deck, you could get extra Jirachi uses every single turn. I think overall, because it's stage 1, this won't be used to get set up, especially because its attack isn't all that relevant, just a flat 70. I think overall this is really low on the power level, but it's a reasonable stage 1 that has a nice ability, I guess. Then, top right, we have the Lucario. This has Tag Coach. Your tag team Pokemon take 20 less damage from your opponent's attacks after applying weakness and resistance. So, we've seen how Pikaroms have tried to have Aether Paradise in the deck to be a little bit clunkier. Oh, sorry, chunkier, not clunkier. And I can imagine there might be some room for decks trying to be chunkier with this Lucario, keep out of range. Obviously stackable as well, so you can minus 80 if you really want to. It's a lot of search, but at least Lucario is a fighting type, and it has a relevant fighting GX Pokemon as well. So it's sort of gifted in that right, where you could have a fighting tech Pokemon for some certain matchups, and then in other matchups, your Riolus aren't dead because they could evolve into this guy and at least give your own tag teams a bit more bulk. So that is a reasonable card overall. I think it's going to take up a lot of space to have this, especially when it's like a stage 1 that's not drawing cards. That's normally what we're using our evolutions for at the moment. But it does seem versatile, and because it evolves from a Riolu, you have to think about its counterpart GX and how useful that's been in the meta recently. So I've definitely got high hopes for this Lucario as a tech option. We have a Meloetta, which doesn't seem all that impactful. Has Tag Yell, attach an energy card from your hand to one of your tag teams. Really bad acceleration, especially from hand rather than deck or anywhere else. And Meteor Step for 2 colors does 30. Flip a coin if tails. This does 30 more for each. Oh, sorry, until tails. Flip for 30 more for each heads. Yeah, very uninspiring card. As is the Kangaskhan, seems pretty basic. For a colorless, you get to draw 2. And for 4 colorless, you do tag impact 50 times the number of tag team Pokemon you have in play. Not really a big payoff for having lots of bench-sitting tag teams. We haven't seen any tag teams yet that have an ability. So there's not really any reason to have a Kangaskhan up front and then a bunch of tag teams just waiting in the wings, especially because this guy is so expensive to attack with. So doesn't seem all that inspiring. Then we do get onto the GX Pokemon that have been announced so far. As I mentioned, Garchomp and Giratina Tag Team GX are the poster boys of this set, and they are a 270 hit point Dragon type, weak to Fairy, 3 retreat cost with 3 attacks. The first is a colorless. You just do a 40 snipe anywhere. Honestly, that's just reasonable early game pressure. For a Psychic Fighting colorless, we have Calamity Edge doing a base of 160, which is already very strong. But if your opponent's active already has any damage counters on it, you do 80 more damage. Straight away, when you hear damage already on it, you think about things like Shrine. That doesn't work too well with tag teams. So my next thought is Giratina. Giratina itself, the Distortion Door option, being able to place counters on some Pokemon early, could then set them up for a big Calamity Edge. Obviously, a Distortion Door with the base output already knocks out something like a Tapu Lele, but with the extra 80, you're knocking out like other tag teams at times as well. 160 being already a very great baseline with something like Choice Band makes me excited for this card. I think it's definitely pretty reasonable. There are other ways we can get damage counters on your opponent's stuff as well from other sniping Pokemon and abilities, so it's going to be interesting where this ends up. The reason why I mentioned the Distortion Door is because there's a Psychic energy in its attack cost as well as a colorless, so I could see this potentially becoming a new face of Malamar decks. Also, having a Fighting Energy symbol in the deck, obviously we can mitigate that with Viridian Forest, and playing some extra fighting tech Pokemon, again, like Baby Buzzwole comes to mind, a great tech card in the game right now, can be splashed into Malamar decks to improve your Zoroark, which has always felt a little underwhelming. So having the fighting energy cost in the card actually helps push an archetype of Malamar that's different from the ones we see so far. Its GX attack for 2 Psychic and a Fighting just says GG End GX. Discard one of your opponent's Pokemon and all cards attached to them. If this Pokemon has at least 3 extra fighting energy attached in addition to its attack cost, discard 2 of your opponent's Pokemon and all cards attached to them instead. There's some pretty wacky like win conditions you can make out of this if you do some like Cyrus plays and other random shenanigans here and there. Similar to how we've seen like Plea GX end up closing out games in strange board states. You've seen those highlight reel moments. Overall, discarding your opponent's Pokemon doesn't seem strong, especially for 6 energy commitment. Not taking any prize cards feels weird, but there might be a highlight reel moments where you end up winning the game by literally removing all of your opponent's Pokemon in play at once. So there might be some sort of random build around there, but it seems definitely flashy and not all that strong. However, I'm excited by Calamity Edge. I think that's a strong attack and potentially build around for a Malamar. Not the best card I've ever seen, and I can definitely see Malamar just keeping with Ultra Necrozma because of how powerful that card is. But this guy does hit good numbers, and it's not all that difficult to get previous damage on other things, so something to bear in mind, seeing as though he is pretty cheap and efficient. Then we have the Heatran GX, 190 hit point fire type, that has the ability Burning Road. Once during a turn, if this Pokemon was on your bench and became your active Pokemon this turn, you may move any number of fire energy attached to your Pokemon to this one. We know that the fire archetypes from Unbroken Bonds are all about energy accelerating all at once, so this guy being able to get into the active and then steal a bunch of energy from elsewhere sounds very promising to me already. Really, really good ability. Its attacks are Explosive Stamp for Fire colorless, doing 130 base damage. That's a little bit low, that's a little bit off the pace, but its GX attack, Heat Bomber GX, does sound powerful. For just 1 fighting, fire, what am I talking about? This attack does 50 times the amount of fire energy attached to this Pokemon. So, again, with Welders, with this ability that can just steal energy from your other guys, you could get a big one-hit KO out of nowhere. Obviously, committing like 4 energy to this guy for a big knockout is good, but then there's nowhere else to go for him. Like, the Explosive Stamp isn't a good follow-up attack, and he's not the bulkiest of Pokemon, so although his ability is very flashy and strong and could get knockouts out of nowhere, I think the fire decks that I'm looking at right now aren't really crying out for a card like this. The GX attack on Charizard and Reshiram tag team is already strong enough, and it's probably doing the same amount, if not more, than the Heatran will be for the same amount of energy cards. So, yeah, overall, I think the ability is flashy, but its attack's a little under the bar. That's all for the SM10 stuff. Let's move on to the rest of the news. On the 6th of March, we finally got confirmation that the mystery case file was, of course, the Mewtwo GX case file. We saw it in the trailer as well. We know Mewtwo will be featuring in the movie, and it's going to come with the promo, the coin, 2 Detective Pikachu boosters, 1 other booster pack, and a code. That's coming to us on April 5th in the US and March 29th in some international countries. We also got the rest of the Detective Pikachu cards announced. All of them were relatively unimpactful and uninspiring, except for these 2 that I picked out. The Greninja has this evasion jutsu ability. Flip a coin. If heads, you don't take damage that turn from your opponent's attack, which is pretty nuts. And it can do 2 50 damage snipes for 2 water energies. Obviously, Greninja has the Greninja GX and those Frogadiers, the lower forms, which have those synergies with spread damage. So this sounds like it could be an awkward non-GX deck that if you flip enough heads is going to, you know, rack up value damage-wise. So that sounds really annoying to deal with. And the Ditto has the attack Copy Anything. Choose one of your opponent's Pokemon's attacks and use it as this attack. If this Pokemon doesn't have the necessary energy, the attack does nothing. So the idea is you can copy a bunch of interesting stuff. Maybe you're a deck that plays Rainbow Energies. Maybe you're just a Mirror Tech card as a non-GX option that you can just throw into the active in mirror match situations. The biggest mirror match which comes to my mind is Zoroark mirrors, because Copy Anything could be a way that you can response knock out a Lycanroc, even if you don't have any Rockruffs on your own side of the field, because you could still counter energy this, attach a unit energy or a fighting energy, and you can just copy their Dangerous Rogue and knock out their own big threat. Whereas previously, if your opponent does like deal with your only Rockruff, you lose the game. Now you can have a switch, a counter game, and attachment with this Ditto, and you can get an instant response. You can also respond on something like a Weavile, for example, as well. So this gives you even more response opportunity in Zoroark mirror matches, which is actually pretty interesting. So the Ditto looks innocent enough, but he's a card that I really want to keep in mind for some interesting tech options. Next up, we have the Family Box Set. Remember, this is the one releasing... it's actually out right now in Japan. It's being released as 3 60-card decks with damage counters, coin, and bans to wrap the decks in, because these are products meant for beginners and families trying to get into the game and learn the rules themselves. All the cards have been revealed. All of them are completely uninspiring. A lot of vanilla attacks, a lot of just no-text options here and there, very simple cards. I picked out some of my favorite artworks because that's really all I see this set is. If you're not a beginner living in Japan, which... if you are listening to this as a beginner in Japan, hi, but you're not the high percentage of people I'm talking to right now. It's a collector's set, really, for us, because, I mean, look at some of these artworks. They've got the big hitters, they've got the Charizard, they've got Pikachu, they've got Mew, they've got Mewtwo, Raichu, all that good stuff, and they've got some really original artworks in here, so I really do think this is a nice collector piece, but not much for players. I couldn't really pick out any card that had any significance to talk about in terms of what damage they could do or whatever else, so yeah, that's the Family Box Set. Then, on the same day, we had those Unbroken Bond product images. I've already shown off all the boosters and the box and all that good stuff, so it was really just these promo cards in the blisters that were to be released. Looks like the Pikachu and the Eevee are both new. The Typhlosion and the Sceptile are both reworked artworks of cards we've already seen before. But yeah, you can get your hands on some blister packs and get yourself some new promos. Why not? And then we have the more promo cards coming out. We heard about this on March 11th, first of all, with the Bulbasaur, and then day by day we also saw the Psyduck and the Snubbull. The promotion is happening at Walmart, Target, and GameStop in the US. There's also a big list for other countries as well, so if you want to see where you can get this in your own country, you can go and head over to Poker Beach, where I find and source all my information. They have a long list of different countries and where they distribute these. And these are 3 promos, SM 198, 199, and 200, the Bulbasaur, Psyduck, and Snubbull. all in conjunction, of course, with Detective Pikachu. I think all three of these Pokemon are featured in the main set of Detective Pikachu as well, just with different artworks and different attacks, actually. They're different cards themselves. So some interesting promo cards, all in line with Detective Pikachu. I mean, this is a massive movie, and they really are pushing it with all sorts of merchandise. So I'm really hoping it's good. It's really getting close now as well, so I'm excited. On March 12th, more Detective Pikachu to talk about. Ultra Pro now have accessories as well. Looks like a little mini booklet, sleeves, and playmats for the Detective Pikachu movie as well. So you can troll people with that Mr. Mime playmat if you really want to. On March 16th, we got that Blastoise GX Premium Box announcement. It's coming to us in July 5th. It's going to contain the full art Blastoise GX as a jumbo, as well as a regular promo, as well as foil, Squirtle, and Wartortle, most likely from the same set. It's going to have a Blastoise pin and coin, 6 boosters, and a TCG Go code. The real big note here, outside of the box itself being released, is that we have previously had a Charizard Premium Collection box, and that had the full art Charizard in it, and that was removed from our own English set. We couldn't pull it from packs. You could only get the full art Charizard from this Premium Collection box, and this Blastoise may well follow suit. It may be taken out of the main Unbroken Bond set, just leaving the half art and the rainbow, and this is the way that you can, complete your set by getting the full art. That's as long as they keep in line with the Charizard box, which I would imagine is going to be the case, but not yet been confirmed that it's out of Unbroken Bonds, but that's the most likely situation that I foresee. But yeah, Blastoise GX Collection. I'm happy because I'm a Stoice boy. And on March 18th, we got the Remix Bout announcement. Not much to say just yet, but this is the next mini set from Japan, going to be containing 64 cards, which I've said twice because that's how little information we have here. But it's going to have Charizard, Blastoise, and Venusaur. We don't yet know if they're going to be GXs or whatnot, but that's all we know about the Remix Bout set. So more from that to come for sure, as it is the next mini set that we're going to be looking at. And that's it, guys. Mainly the SM10 stuff is the news, but a lot of other smutterings here and there. Lots of Detective Pikachu hype being pushed by products right now, so that's all good. I hope you're looking forward to the movie. From the trailers and stuff, I'm very excited. So yeah, that's it for this couple weeks, guys, and I'll be back with the news when there's an appropriate amount of it to talk about again. So hope you enjoy, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Cheers.